been bringing in new scientists into the picture, even as others retire. And that has an implication because in the near future, the number of innovations, the number of publications will certainly go down.
Thank you very much. David?
Yes, it's a difficult question, as well said. But I want to say like this: innovation is a process. Most of the time, the fundings we have for research, sometimes 1 year, sometimes 2 years, and maybe maximum 3 years. If you have developed an idea that you want to take to the next level, I think you need not less than 5 years of funding for you to be able to reach. I've had the opportunity to interact with, for example, if you Google a fish feed called Novak from Australia, which is now patented and being sold in Vietnam, a discussion with scientists from CSIRO tells me they worked on that feed for 15 years, consistent. And then they were able to make a breakthrough. And now they are able to sell the formula to others. So I think we need to rethink the funding for research so that we enable the main ideas that come so that they can be able to be taken to another level. I've moved through the young scientists, some of them. They are very bright ideas. But who moves them to the next level? Do we have funding to jumpstart them from there? Or maybe link them to mentors who work with them? What journey? How long? I think that's where the challenge is.
Professor Jenga?
Thank you, Chair. I think I agree with my panel members that this is not an easy question, but in my opinion, I jotted 3 points. One, I think we need a better enabling environment. And what I mean here is, do we have enough infrastructure to enable innovation? So we need infrastructure which will enable the innovation. Because some of the innovation, for example, in the areas of human health research, need quite a bit of investment, and there has to be a dedication by the relevant authorities to provide those kind of infrastructure. Also, the human resource. Human resource is key if we are going to have innovation. Funding is key, and my colleagues have talked about funding. For example, in KEMRI, the funding that we get for research is 70% external. If I was to show you the kind of research we do, you'll be amazed by the funding we get from NIH, the funding we get from Wellcome Trust and Oxford and CDC and so forth. So, but what we get from the government of Kenya is mainly for emoluments, the salaries and so forth. So we need to increase our own resource mobilization so that we have more of our funding so that we can do things and follow agenda that is our own, homegrown agenda. Like I showcased the IRG. IRG is our agenda. It's not externally driven, so we are doing this research for Kenya and for Kenyans. The final one, Chair, is our culture. So we need to develop at early age that culture of nurturing innovation. We don't have to wait until a child goes to do masters is when we are telling them about innovation. We need this culture early, at early age. I've gone to Japan, and it's amazing things you see children do in school. So they have this innovating culture. They are trained how to critically think. They don't have to be good English speakers. They speak Japanese. They are not good, but they innovate all the time. So talking English is not the only thing that we need to learn. We need to learn how to make our own homegrown solutions. Thank you.
Jonah?
So thank you, Chair. So I have a few points, but my key area of focus is the link between research and industry. We need to at least commercialize our research, because from our experiences as KEFRI, the moment we bring in the private sector in terms of scaling up our product development, that is when we can have a breakthrough in terms of having more feasible impact in terms of what is being traded, the commodities that are being exported. We have seen that as one of the key aspects that as research institutions we need to invest in. So more developed countries have a lot of strong partnership with their industries. So I think for Kenyan case, we need to focus that more on that aspect. Then issues of sustainability, because we mainly rely on funding, the exchequer funding, that maybe you can only be able to do maybe research for 1 year, and that is it. So those are some of the issues that we need to think about. How can we bring in the aspect of sustainability to ensure that what we develop have long-term effects and also impacts to the communities. Thank you, Prof.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Before I let this wonderful people leave, can we give them a clap, one big one? And I invite the cameraman to take them a picture. They got something to take home. Take a photo for them. That's the only present can give them. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for bearing with us. Thank you.
Try and recover much time as possible, but we are going into a very, very important session, a session that we have been challenged upon, and it's the power of storytelling in science communication. The moderator for the session is Dr. Joy Owango, and I will request you please to come and moderate the next session. Let's welcome Joy Owango as she comes in.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm literally in between you and your lunch, and I promise to make this session not only interactive, but a maximum of 35 minutes. So I'm the Executive Director of the Training Center in Communication. It's a research capacity trust based at the University of Nairobi, and what we do is we build capacity for researchers, institutes, and governments on how they can improve their research output and increase their visibility through training and in scholarly and science communication. So this is actually very dear to us because we've been doing this for the last 18 years, and I'm really happy to bring in our panelists, whom we are going to have a discussion on what we need to do to improve communicating our research outputs to the various stakeholders. And these are stakeholders, these are partners we are really happy to say that we've worked with. So our first panelist is Mr. Kenneth Monjero. Mr. Monjero? As he's coming in, he is the founder of the president of the Fun and Education Global Network. On Twitter, or on X, he's called Dr. Fun. He is well known for sharing very innovative ways on communicating science to children from kindergarten to high school. So he knows how to make it fun, Dr. Fun. Next is Dr. Patrick Kinyua Kubai. Dr. Kubai is the Coordinator of Research, Collaboration and Extension, where he oversees the University Research Collaboration and Extension ecosystem in the Directorate of Research Innovation at Meru University of Science and Technology. Other than being teaching in clinical medicine and community health, he has been actively involved in the research and innovation weeks being hosted by the university. Welcome, sir. Next is Mr. Duncan Boyer. Mr. Duncan Boyer, he holds a BSc in Communication and Journalism degree from Moi University and has over 15 years in science journalism. He has been a practicing journalist in Kenya for various media organizations, but he also sits, and he's also done research for the International Federation of Journalists, and most importantly, he sits, he is the current chairperson of the Kenya Kenya Environment and Science Journalists Association. And our final speaker is Dr. Margaret Karembu. Dr. Karembu is the director of the Africa Center for the International Service for the Acquisition of Agribiotech Applications, known as ISA. She is the chair of the African Science Dialogue Hub. She is a science educator and communicator, on top of that being a trainer, and she's been actively involved in strengthening capacity for science communication and policy outreach for informed choices on modern biosciences in Africa. Welcome. So now we'll get right to it. We're talking about science communication, and that is literally the hardest bit after you've done your research, because you need to talk to non-scientists, you need to talk to different kinds of stakeholders in making sure that they understand your work. So to get right to it, we'd want the panelists to 1 minute each, we're in between them and their lunch. Introduce yourselves, and I've already introduced your institutions. Could you tell us and share with us, and could you demonstrate to us the work you've done in regards to science communication? 1 minute.
Thank you so much. As it's been said, I work with the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization at Biotechnology Research Institute. I also am the founder for Fun and Education Global Network. And what I've been doing is really to make science attractive. How can we attract? Because it's not only getting audience to really know what we're doing as research, but then how can we attract them to appreciate science? The other thing is looking at the uptake of STEM careers. It's really lagging behind. So are we complaining and waiting at the university uptake on those careers to say, what can we do? The best way is to attract and engage young people as early as primary school and high school to appreciate, and also to elevate them within the research arena. And that's what I've been doing, especially even within CalRO, to see how can young people appreciate what scientists are doing. Other than just walking through the labs, how can they appreciate through prototypes, hands-on experiments, and not only experiments, but how can it be attractive, engaging, and empowering? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. 1 minute.
Thank you very much. For me, I do only very simple things. Our purpose in the directorate is one: demystifying, decoding, and ensuring that the information in form of graphicals, in form of charts, in form of the data we collect is delivered to the audience who need it. Because what has been happening in science is that we spend a lot of time in the laboratories doing which we don't deliver to our audience. Our audience needs to understand it in a short duration of time. We do presentations in 2 to 5 minutes using the emerging methodologies of science communication, and specifically for us at Meru University, through the collaboration of University of Calgary, at Dalhousie University, at Barara University, we are doing what we call knowledge translation using digital storytelling. I have a video. If I have a chance, I will be showing you one. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yes, Chair. Yeah, we founded KENSJA simply because we felt frustrated as journalists. You go out to a conference like this one, and then all of a sudden, the editors did not see the sense of publishing these articles. So a few of us felt like we have to really remain focused, since our role is to inform and educate Kenyans. Out of that, so far, we have risen to 80 members. A good number of us also keep on leaving for communication work. But what we can see from 2007, that we founded this association, we now have desks in the mainstream media houses. And some of us who are founder members have risen to editorial level, and already they are making sure that science is given the coverage it deserves. And you can see for yourselves, if you open newspapers, if you watch news, at least you'll see something to do with science nowadays.
Thank you. Dr. Karembu.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joy, and it's such a pleasure to be here. ISA is the International Service for the Acquisition of Agribiotech Applications. We've been in Africa for the last 30 years now, hosted by the International Livestock Research Institute. We work with both public and private sector institutions, and our main business is to share knowledge on all aspects of modern biosciences and ensuring that scientists are able to come down from their ivory towers and reduce or break down their technical jargon into non-technical language that policymakers, farmers, journalists can make sense out of science. So we provide a service.
You mentioned something about digital storytelling. Yes. How does storytelling enhance the understanding and retention of scientific information among diverse research ecosystems?
I was not able to mention all the guys. At Meru University, we have been able to train over 35 dons across the 8 faculties or across the 8 schools. So this digital storytelling methodology has been adopted for training our postgraduate students and for incorporating in our training. Number 2, we have been able to use digital storytelling to demystify science through imagery, audio, and we do scripts of between 300 to 500 words. And when you take that information there, people watch that movie, and in a short time, they can associate with the movie. And that is why, even in our homesteads, we can get glued to the TV for many hours and understand what is happening, even without understanding the language. So if we can translate our science into pictorial elaborations or illustrations, you can really work. In the University of Barara University, we had a project there which has been implemented to completion. And when we went for evaluation last year in April, we were able to get feedback from the community, and even if you go online, you will be able to get that. At Meru University, we have used digital storytelling to win grants from NIH, like we have won a grant on Seeding Lab, and one of the requirements was for us to do a digital story, and really, digital storytelling can help you to demystify science and make it simple. And even other STEM sciences, it can be used very well. So we have applied it, and the methodology is working.
Thanks. So it means that also other universities can learn from you. Is there an opportunity for them to come for knowledge exchange on how you're going through your methodology on digital storytelling?
Sure, we have been having trainings. Next year, January, first semester, we will be training around 25 members of staff. But I can request our partners, we get inclusion of other universities.
Fantastic.
To be precise, actually, we are 5 universities in Kenya. Kabarak University is a member of the team. Kenya Medical Training College. Then we have another institution. Kisii University was supposed to be with us. And there's another university. We were around 4 institutions from Kenya.
So everybody, you know, there's a partner to work with to be taught on digital storytelling. Now, and because it works, clearly. So Dr. Karambu, how does storytelling enhance the understanding and retention of scientific information among diverse research ecosystems, bearing in mind the kind of work you've been doing in biosciences?
Yeah, storytelling. When you imagine the stories we had from our grandmothers, they spoke in a language that we could really understand. And what was very unique about that, there was always a hero or someone who had a problem, and that problem needed a solution so that you can move that, either the hair or the auger, from one situation to the next. So in terms of storytelling, I normally test with my children. I have a dentist in the house. She's a Gen Z. And so one day we were in a meeting, a social gathering, a wedding, and we were seated next to some politicians. And one politician asked, when we were introducing ourselves, asked her, oh, I've been given an appointment to do a root canal. Can you tell me what does it take to do a root canal? Then my daughter quickly, it takes just 3 simple steps: extirpation, chemomechanical preparation, and obturation. So the politician was dazed and asked, what does all that mean? What am I trying to say? In storytelling, especially when it comes to scientific information, we need to step down the language. You must consider who you are speaking to or who you are telling the story to. And very, very importantly, you must consider the platform through which you tell your story. So if you want your research to be heard, to be used, to inform evidence, first and foremost, remember your hero. Who is your hero? And then what problem does the hero have? What are their pain points? If it's a politician or a policy maker, they are looking for evidence to inform policy. But if you go with the kind of language, technical language that we always do when you're in scientific conferences, your research findings will never inform anything. And then lastly, how does your research move your problem seeker from one level to the next? It's a farmer. He or she has a problem. So you need to link how you move that farmer from the point he or she is in terms of loss of yields or disease pressures to a level where he or she is able to get better yields. And so translating all that requires stories, but those stories must be told in a way that is understandable to your audience. So remember, a hero with a problem, and you have an intervention yourself as a researcher, as a scientist, but you must demonstrate how that finding moves your hero from their pain to their joy.
Thank you. Now, when it comes to science journalism, what do you think is the future of science journalism and its active contribution to the academic community? And we from the academic community, what do we need to do better to make the process seamless?
Yes, I think that what scientists need to do more is collaboration with journalists. We cannot work alone without scientists, and we all know that science is something that is very factual and is not politics or lies. So for us to move as one, we need to incorporate journalists, get them involved, and also look at them as part of you, whereas we are not really pure scientists, we are social scientists. But over time, we have realized a situation where scientists are not willing to talk to journalists, and I will credit, I've seen Professor Micheka here, is always ready to talk to journalists. We know also institutions that are not willing to talk to journalists, and from where we are coming from, we believe that research is not complete if it is not communicated to the masses. So our appeal is that you need to change the way you look at us. You need to really step back a little and stop taking words that are uttered by some people saying that journalists are bad people, they'll finish you. I think you need to ask yourself, why do they say that and the following day they call the journalists to cover them? What they're simply doing is that they know you are telling the truth, but they want to keep you away from the media. So they want that space. That space is for you. In fact, that's why we founded this association. I've seen presenters saying they are mandated by acts. Ours, we mandated ourselves because we wanted to bridge the gap. We wanted you guys to teach Kenyans, to educate them, at least to change. For example, when you look at cholera, cholera is a disease that should not be killing people in a number that it does. But it does because they are not informed. They don't get this kind of information. So my appeal and our appeal is that incorporate us, talk to us. We are not bad people. I think we just talk like friends. For example, if somebody here, I think some of you know Dr. Mugo, he formerly worked for CIMIT. When the debate of GMOs started coming, and I started knowing Dr. Mugo in 2003, and when the seeds came from Mexico, he engaged a number of us, a few journalists, and we went to the airport to receive the seeds. Some of us were scared. Then we went to Kiboko, we planted, and we saw it from the beginning to the end. So my appeal also is engage us from the beginning, rather than calling us when you want to release the findings. That is not much enough because we are not the scientists of your caliber and we don't understand these topics. So if you take us through, this is how we also get to know, so that as a messenger, I don't misreport to the listener or the viewers or the readers.
Maybe there are few challenges also we are encountering in digital storytelling. I don't want to dwell there, it's about publication. For us, we have been able to come up with a consent and recruitment form. In our ethics committee, also we are trying to integrate the tools for continual consenting, because when you publish any story, whether it is on Twitter, TikTok, you need to get the consent. So that is the gap which is there at policy level, and maybe as Professor Andala and the other stakeholders communicate to the fellow policymakers, we need to integrate that in our ethics committees, IRBs in all institutions, to ensure that at least the continual consenting process is acquired. So during the storytelling, as we write and publish, we also need to take cognizance of that, so that we don't get into litigation issues of digital storytelling as we bring it to the, as a method of translating knowledge for innovations in our country.
Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Fan.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I'm looking at the academia in regards to science communication, and I always pose this question: should scientists become journalists, or should journalists become scientists? Because there is missing link. Journalists might not be equipped with what the scientist is doing, and the scientist doesn't know how to communicate what they are doing. And I've seen this aspect change, especially within CalRO, where scientists have now been, capacity building has been done on how to interact with farmers, because these are not times to do research for farmers, it's time to do research with farmers. How can we embed them, engage them in the research value chain? And not only that, but the tool of storytelling, I just want to go to that. I highly advocate for science centers, science museums, science parks, because this sparks the interest within the non-scientific audience. And science communication is a very key tool to engaging or to doing research with the various farmers. And I think also universities. I've not come across a university in Kenya. I only know of Stellenbosch University that is actually doing science communication at degree, at master's, at BA, PhD level. So we really need to come to part to have a unit, not just science communication, not just communication, but real science communication. And within science centers, science parks, I think this sparks interest, like the way we've been doing at Calro with climate change, because I really advocate for climate awareness, climate change awareness before action. Otherwise, we'll force people to go into action. We'll have holidays for planting of trees, but no one will be there. People will be sleeping or going for holiday. Why? They don't understand what climate change is all about. And that's how we attract and engage every audience to really understand, have that empathy. And not even our children, our young learners. How can we make them know the magnitude of the problems that we are identifying? Parents are solving problems. When you talk about a learner to solve a problem, they think about a mathematical question or such. So how can we empower them with the critical thinking aspect of identifying a problem and actually working towards addressing the problem? Design thinking, critical thinking, and making it simple in such a way a primary school kid can know the pathway towards identifying a problem and solving the problem.
Thank you. So the reality is, yes, we may not have universities that are providing science communication degrees, but we do have universities in the country that have made it a bit subject specific. So you'd have agricultural science communication at undergraduate to master's level. And we also have some of the universities that have health, science communication in health. So it has become subject specific, but I get your point that it needs to be open and multidisciplinary, such that it is not confined within the identified subject areas. Are there any questions from the audience? Would you like to know more about storytelling, what you need to do, any other innovative ways that you might have on storytelling? Or what do you expect from scientists to improve their communication? No mumbling outside. Yes, Knox. Remember, you're not going to mumble outside. You tell us what you want them to do to make it better.
I'll try to be quick, and we've been trying to do it with the NRF Kenya when we started on Monday talking about science communication. I think, yes, we need science communicators as a career, but I think the first instinct that should be taught to researchers is to communicate research to the public.
Yes.
Because the first instinct of researchers is to tell their peers, and they get awarded for that. So I think this is where the mess of communicating to the public. First instinct for research should be communicating to the public or stakeholders, not your own friends in your own research area.
That is actually very correct, and it's what, as a center, TCC Africa, based at the University of Nairobi, we are doing. We've been training scientists on how to communicate to various stakeholders, starting with their peers. And fortunately, some of the stakeholders here are not only either recipients, but partners that we've worked with in training scientists on how to communicate their work. Because, yeah, coming to you and you, because, because the reality is, as scientists, you need to understand you're already involved in the communication process through scholarly communication. You're writing papers, you're talking to peer reviewers, you're already communicating. It's just that you need to communicate differently because you're talking to a different audience about your work. So there shouldn't be a fear about it, because that's what we always hear all the time, but an understanding that it's a different way of communicating the same work. There are 4 hands, and then they will answer. Yes. Where's the roving mic? Or should we? Yeah, there are 4.
Okay. I have a question, and I think my question will be directed to the representative from Calro. Because I believe Calro had developed a lot of varieties, especially with the impacts of climate change. There are a lot of varieties that are developing every day, the ones that can be able to stand the impact of climate change. And most of this research are lying in publications. As you can see, when Camry was presenting, you could see the graph, the concentration, the outputs, the research output was declining as years goes by, meaning that a lot of research, a lot of output has been produced out there. Is it that communication, the researchers are not communicating to the targets, like farmers, the one that you are developing these products for the farmers? And then we are not communicating to farmers, and that is what is leading to low uptake or low adoption of these research outputs. Like we can see, most farmers are still growing indigenous crops, the ones that are, with the impact of climate change, the environment is changing, the water levels are changing, the soil composition is changing, but they are not ready to adopt to the new varieties. Is it because they don't know why they should adopt for that? And then this also leads to a lot of misconception out there. Like for instance, as he was talking about when GMO, while the ban was lifted, there were a lot of misconception out there, but we didn't see researchers coming out and trying to explain to the public what exactly are these varieties, what exactly are these seeds. And now we leave it to our politicians to explain to the citizens. And now with that, there is a lot of misconception and the adoption rates continue to decrease, meaning that we'll continue researching, we'll continue giving research outputs, but it is not helping us as a nation. Is there a program that is allowing whatever we are researching, the output that are adopted at maybe farm level, as from Carol? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would say within Calro now we have fully fledged departments that are actually dealing with technology transfer. We have socio-economic scientists that are at par, especially, as I said earlier, we do not do research for, but we do research with. So it really, Calro has made a strategy to reach out to farmers, to identify issues that farmers are facing, and to regularly update them on the research pathway. And also the research grants that we receive are nowadays tailored to a whole value chain. So it's not just doing research and having a publication, but really looking at how do we scale up that. Calro is also working with private sector, public sector, in regards to either giving the technology to the ministry or otherwise giving the technology to private sector to really pick it up. And more so, we are now even having products within our own institutions. And that's how we have techno shops. So I would say we are really trying to speed, to really do technology transfer. We are really trying up to speed to do partnership, and that's why we're really up to game in regards to farmers' field days and all that. But still, there is need to translate the research that's laying into publications into products. And that I really acknowledge NRF what they have done, really to come up and see what kind of research do we have and what kind of products are coming out and how can the industry pick up on that.
Okay, Dr. Karambo, please also contribute to that. I will take 3 questions because it's your lunch, unless we want to sit.
Yeah, thank you.
3 questions, yes.
So one of the biggest challenges with translating research into products for society has been the business as usual model of doing research, but communication becomes an afterthought. For the longest period, we've been really putting a strong case for funders and development partners to consider communication as part and parcel of a research project. Because when it is an afterthought, then you end up having findings, and then somebody else or another team comes and starts trying to make sense out of that. So this is one of the areas that we really need to be very, very strict about, and the national research funds, please, whenever you support research, let's ensure that we have a kitty or we have a component for communicating research findings. Number 2, we have universities and our research institutions where we have the natural sciences and we have the social sciences. You'd be surprised that many have schools of mass communication and journalism, but the natural scientists are not even aware that they have resources they can use or skills they can use, because everybody is operating in silos, even within our universities. And so we've been encouraging researchers to visit the schools of journalism, find out how the language that you use can be transcribed into the language that the particular stakeholder you have in mind that can make sense of your research or that can use your research findings can use. Because if you're able to cross transdiscipline among our institutions, we are not short of skills in communication and we are not short of skills in research, but we must break that silo mentality. The last one, just three ones, is when Boya was talking about the media, I wanted to ask a question to the audience. How many of us here have a real friend journalist? If you're a scientist or a researcher and you have a friend who is a journalist, raise your hand. So do you see where the problem is? Because we don't cultivate any relationship with the media, and yet most of our stakeholders, including our policymakers, will get to know about scientific breakthroughs through the media. Because for scientists, we are very good at publications. It's good to get your paper in Nature and other high-ranking journals, but then that is not where the end users of your findings are. They will hear from the journalists, and most likely it will be miscommunicated because you have not cultivated any form of media relationship. And so in ISA, we've been running this program called a pairing program, where we are pairing scientists with journalists to establish relationships so that they come and visit your lab, they come and visit your research, and that way you work with them, and they don't necessarily have to report, but they get to understand what you do. And you also get our scientists, the ones who are in our program of science communication, visiting media houses so that they can understand the reality of news making. You know, news has to be sexy, it has to be packaged in such a way that it's a story, because you're talking to human beings, you're not talking to papers, you're not talking to machines, you're not talking to those lab equipments. Once you've done your research, think through my audience, and then please, before you leave or before you finish your research project, make sure you have a journalist who is your friend, who you can interact, who can help you in getting through to your audience, because communication is different from information sharing. When you share information, you package, I review proposals and I see so many of those. Oh, how will you disseminate findings? Oh, I'll do a pamphlet, I'll do a policy brief. Yes, good for policy briefs, but then that is not communication. Communication is about getting through some social interaction between yourself as a researcher and the user of your research findings.
Okay. So 3 questions. We'll get all the 3 questions and then they will answer. So there's a gentleman here and the 2 at the back, and then that's it. Yes. Just a second, sir. Let them please ask all your questions and then you will answer them. Yes.
My name is Abdul. In terms of communicating and also disseminating research findings or our research, our consumers are the people. How much have we invested in communicating to the local languages? Because we are leaving our traditions and we are using the English language mostly in disseminating information to the people. and yet we leave the common person who is really in need of the local language. Because we are taking an example of the coronavirus issue, that we disseminate information using the local languages. And it got to very far much information, and people were able to be able to move and also interact well, because that information was disseminated to their best language that they. Our research, is there investment in terms of translating these findings into our local language? Thank you.
The next two questions.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
My name is Edgar Afula, and thanks to Mackay report of 1981, I managed to attend the 844 system. And on behalf of these delegates who are seated here, we are grateful for this opportunity. Well, I'm affiliated to the University of Nairobi, where the moderator is. But again, if I relate my question to what my friend has just talked about, we are really talking about National Research Festival on behalf of the elite, 10% who managed to go to the university. My question is very general and goes to the panelists. What role is the government of Kenya, a National Research Festival in totality, playing to ensure that the 90% of our community, because I am very sure that Kenya's Vision 2030 envision Kenya to be an equity society, but a few of us managed to go to the university like me and get an opportunity to understand Article 1 of the Constitution, the sovereignty of people. So even if we are talking about the communication and the science, what about that little Mwananchi that is back in Busia, where I come from? I am known as the advocate of the less fortunate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Sam Muturi. I have got a question which is directed to the person, the doctor from the University of Nairobi, and also the gentleman from Cairo. When I checked last, I am from boomer generation. When I checked last, there should be a distinction between basic research and applied research. So I want to know from the University of Nairobi, do you have this distinction? And also from Cairo. When I checked last, they said that basic research is research which you do to expand the horizon of knowledge. And applied research is the research you do that can solve day-to-day problems. So in your research activities, I'm also from a university, do you have this distinction? What is proportion, which is basic research, to expand the horizon of knowledge? And what proportion do you do to solve the day-to-day problems like growing of ndoko and nzou in my Makindo farm? Thank you.
Okay. All right. You can start.
Let me dive into it. I will speak to various aspects. So we are usually saying that in science communication, keep it simple. When we say keep it simple, it's you reduce the jargon. And this is what has happened over the years. Actually, these days we are saying publish and perish. People are not saying so much about that. Why are people not giving their story? And even when we leave this place, I know majority of you will remember all the stories you have heard than more what you have read. Because they say if you want to hide something from Africans, put it in writing. They will never remember it. But the movie or soap opera which they watched yesterday, they will remember everything. So in science communication, we are saying, and from where I sit in health, we call it demystifying medicine. Because medicine is so difficult, if you go to our medical training schools, you will realize that as we are taught how to draw your head, indicate where the disease is. If it is on the leg, we draw that spot and indicate that is where we suspect the disease is until we confirm the diagnosis. This is what we call ruling out the diagnosis. So it's the same case in digital storytelling or in science communication. We are proposing a new methodology for both qualitative and quantitative research so that you are able to get or to bridge the gap between you and the consumers. When it comes to participation, right, like now the government is proposing a lot of participation in any agenda. Now in research, we participate in delivering our research outputs, and for knowledge translation now to get the innovations we want and the prototypes. We really need to demystify what we are doing so that even our product, when they get out to the market, they can be used. Last but not least, of course, there's a lot of misconception. So for me to give some way forward, we really need to protect our concepts from day one so that people can speak them in our innovation weeks, they can speak them in festivals like this. Otherwise, it will keep repeating itself and talking about policy. We need also to domesticate how we get consenting process from our NACOSTI, which is the regulating body, to ensure that at least when somebody gives the information, it's not misused for other purposes. Thank you.
The next speakers, please address the issue on communicating in local languages and the government of Kenya's role in making sure that those who are not in the university can also still have access to the communication of the research that is produced. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Dr. Karambu. And then...
Okay, of course I will not talk for government because government is full here, so Andala will talk about that.
Yeah.
But let me mention that in terms of language, it is not just about simplifying the research into English language. It is about pairing scientists with journalists, including those who are in community media, those who are in vernacular stations, so that you can listen, the farmers can listen to the researchers in the language that they understand. And so that pairing program that we've been running, we are actually very keen on ensuring that our scientists also get to understand from the journalists and the extension service providers, including the linguists in our universities, because we are so rich in resources and expertise. We don't use our linguists to help us break down the kind of jargon that we take to our farmers. So again, pairing is important because trust is key in communication. And if somebody speaks my language and is an expert, I'll trust that person better than somebody else who comes and there's a translator or interpreter in between. Let me also mention that I have been involved in an initiative through support from the Research and Innovation System for Africa, RISA, developing Kenya's research and development policy. It is unfortunate that 60 years down to our independence, we actually don't have an overarching policy on research and development. And the question that professor there asked about how do you differentiate between basic research and applied and translational research can very well be addressed when you have a policy that looks at the three rhymes of knowledge, generation, and building. And I am hopeful that that process will be adopted because it clearly showed in Kenya that we have a serious problem in the way we prioritize our research and in the way we disseminate our research, and most importantly, in the way that we miscommunicate research findings. So I hope I'll be talking to Andala again and the team that developed the research and development policy. I know there are initiatives to integrate with the science, technology, and innovation policy, but these questions can be addressed very easily when you have an overarching policy. I know all the institutions have their own policy, institutional policy, but when you don't have an overarching policy, it becomes difficult even to see how best you communicate the research findings from collecting data from grassroots communities, and then you are not able to get an avenue or a platform to communicate that back. Lastly, this is my last point. My last point is that it is also important for researchers and scientists to know that the bottom line about why we do research is that we care about the pains that our society is having, and we need to develop solutions. But when it comes to the scientists, my advice is when you communicate with your end users, people want to know that you care before they care about what you know. I know many times we want to use this big language because we want people to know that we know. But once you are able to establish trust by showing people that you care before you show them what you know, then it becomes so much easier. And once you establish trust, communication becomes very easy.
Thank you. Yes?
Okay, on language, thanks for bringing up that issue. I think we have been saying that scientists are unfair to us, but what we have realized over the years is that they do a lot of disservice to populations in this country. What they talk about is in English. Nobody knows these things on the ground. My appeal is, we have so many vernacular stations nowadays. When they invite you, please walk in and speak your language. Let's only not pretend we know English and Swahili. Let's go down to our mother tongue and talk to the people on the ground. You know, majority of the people, like even now, they'll tell you they heard over the radio. Which radio? It is a community radio station. So if you really want to transform this country, try and move back a little, just make a step. Then finally, Joy, I think the institutions in this country need to relax their policy towards the way they engage with the media. An event like this is a gold mine of stories. You know, we have been going through the presentations, and you realize if you did a presentation yesterday or a day before, a journalist came over to talk to you. Now, we want that presentation. Can you give me what you presented? Then the caveat is, I'm not given permission to share. And now, you are talking here and the money you are given by NRF, which is a public funded institution. So these policies need to relax. You know, you are keeping us off coming to you again. I know certain institutions I can't go to, even if they have a good story to what level, because I'm not going to get the story I want. So what I think, you know, we have been going to NGOs to fill the gap. We can't go to the politicians when it comes to issues of science. We have been going to the international organizations, CIMIT, ICRISAT, ETC, because the Kenyan scientists have blocked us from reaching them. A good number, by the way, a good number. We know institutions that are okay, friendly to us. We know also institutions that you'll never make it. And year in, year out, their MD comes and go, and the same system remains. And now we are talking of young scientists. Do we also want them just to continue the same way? What change are we making?
Yeah.
That's my challenge to scientists and heads of institutions, that if we really want to make our contribution in this country, let's do it. You know, when it comes to leadership, I don't think politicians are the only leaders in this country.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mboya?
Yes.
I think the point is taken. Thank you. So 30 seconds, Dr. Fan. I know you can do it.
A quick one, especially on translation of technologies and research. CalRO has done well because we have videos, simplified videos that are tailored to vernacular languages as well as Swahili. And even if you visit our centers, you'll find English and Swahili both on our display. And number two, on basic and applied research, indeed, basic research advises on applied research. Like we've been looking on interaction of microbes and all that, and then now looking at their significance in our local environment and all that. So, but then applied research is very key because we're really looking at what are issues that we are facing in regards to farming and how can we address that to really address the issue of food security, climate change and all that. So both are applied and more so partnership with universities that dwell more into basic research and then scaling it up to applied research. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much, colleagues. And I need to wind up. Yeah. 20 seconds. 20 seconds.
20 seconds, yeah. The Gen Z revolution has also taught us something very important. the power of social media.
Right.
And scientists are very shy in communicating their findings in social media. I'm challenging all of us. If you don't have a Twitter handle, please, as a researcher, have one, because that is where the generation that is going to consume your research products are. Thank you.
All right. So now, I'm really winding up. So this is our key take-home messages. Number one, we need to look at digital stories as a way of communicating our work, also including local language. And yes, we can actually take advantage of digital story. Take advantage of our community radio stations. Speak in your bad Luo, Kikuyu, Turkana, Borana, when you're speaking in those local languages, because you end up reaching a larger audience. Let's not wait for a pandemic for us to start speaking in our local languages. It needs to be part of our ecosystem. And also, we need to be collaborative as scientists when you're working with journalists. Start from the beginning. And also for the funders who are here, include communication, not as a by the way, because this has been a fight for decades, but as part of the process. The way you're going to pay publication fees include science communication and give various levels of science communication, because you're already demanding for data management plans, you should also demand for science communication outputs in various platforms. And you are in a position of power to influence that change within institutions. And finally, what has come across from everyone is that the whole process of science communication and interacting with journalists and scientists needs integrity. We need to have elements of research integrity. In some cases, we are sharing data. We need to be very mindful of how we share that work, and we need to build trust with our verificator, our findings. Thank you so much for your time and your patience.
Thank you.